Hi, I'm Tarrant.
And I'm Stella, and this is Meeple University How to Play Crypt.
And do stay tuned till the end of this video, where we'll have some tips and strategies from the game's designers, Jeff Chin and Andrew Nerger.
Then let's learn how to play.
In Crypt, players play the roles of offspring of the recently deceased king, attempting to recover treasures and relics from his crypt. The game plays as a relatively rapid auction, with players sending their servants, represented by these dice, out into the crypt to bid on these treasures. The player who bids the most on any given treasure recovers it, and at the end of the game, the player who has the highest value of treasures, represented by this coin, wins the game. Players can improve their wealth further by satisfying the desires of the relevant collectors, who give them extra money as bonuses at the end of the game. To set up the game, first you'll set up the treasure deck. If you're playing with 2 players, remove any cards that show a 3 or a 4, and if you're playing with 3 players, remove any cards that show a 4. In the 4-player game, you'll have 2 copies of each 1, 2, 3, and 4 across the 6 different colours. In a 3-player game, you'll have 2 2s and 2 3s, 1 1 and 1 4 in each of the 6 colours. And in the 2-player game, you'll have a 1, 2, 3 and 4 in each of the 6 colours. Shuffle all of your treasure cards together into a single deck. Lay out the 6 collector cards using the A or B side of each at random. If it's your first game, it's recommended to use the A side for all cards. Place the treasure deck and the lid of the box near your collectors, leaving room for a row of treasure cards, and then each player takes a character card. Other than the colour, the character cards are all the same. Each player then takes 3 dice in his or her colour. Choose a first player who takes the leader card, and then whoever is last in turn order takes the lights out card. If you're playing with 2 players, the same player will take both the leader and lights out card. You're now ready to play. Each round is played in 4 phases: reveal, claim, collect, and pass the torch. This continues until this draw deck is empty, and then you proceed to end of game scoring. In the reveal step, draw cards from the treasure deck into the common area based on this table in your rulebook. In a 2-player game, you'll play 2 cards face up and 1 card face down. In a 3-player game, you'll have 3 cards face up and 1 face down, and in a 4-player game, you'll have 4 face up and 2 face down. With a face down card, you can see which type of treasure it's going to be, but you can't see the number of coins it's going to be worth. After revealing cards, play then passes to the claim phase, in which players will use their servants, which are represented by these dice, to bid on the various treasures available in this round. Each player has 3 dice available in the game. However, all 3 may not be available when it comes to the claim phase, as some dice may end up in the exhausted servant's box. We'll talk more about how this happens later, but what's important to know for this phase is that you can only use dice that you have available on your card. Beginning with the player who has the leader card, each player takes a turn to claim treasures off the board. The player takes 1 or more dice from his or her supply, sets it to whatever number he or she wishes to bid for it, and then places it on the card. The player places all dice in the same turn, so could spread these dice across multiple cards, or could commit multiple dice to the same card. However, if a player chooses to commit multiple dice to the same card, those dice must read the same number. Note that players have full flexibility to set the dice to whatever number they wish. They do not have to roll the dice before this phase. After the first player has placed all dice that he or she wishes to, the second player does likewise, choosing to place dice wherever he or she wishes. Note that face up and face down cards are bid for in exactly the same manner, it's just that you don't know how much the face down card is going to be worth. When making these placements, a player may outbid an opponent by placing more pips onto a card than his or her opponent has. So in this case, the 5 would outbid the 3, and the purple player would get this die back. When a player has placed multiple dice, the total number of pips must be beaten. So a player would need to place at least 11 pips in order to claim this from the black player. When play passes to the player who has the lights out torch, the rules change slightly. This will be the last player to bid in this round, and therefore any bids the player makes cannot be outbid because there's no player left to take that opportunity. In order to counterbalance the benefit that this gives, the player with the lights out torch may only place dice on a single card. So the player could use this opportunity, for example, to make a big outbid and claim that card like so. Remember that in the two-player version of the game, the same player has both the leader and the lights out card, and that means that that player will get the chance to bid twice, both first and last. But remember that the lights out bid can only be on a single card. Because you have full flexibility to choose the number that you set on your dice, your immediate question might be, why wouldn't I always bid sixes or high numbers? And what we'll see in the next phase is that the higher you bid, the more likely you will lose your dice into the exhausted servants box. When it comes to your turn in the claim phase, most or all of your servants may already be in the exhausted servants box. In this circumstance, instead of trying to claim any treasures in this round, you can choose to recover all of your exhausted servants. If you do this, you won't be getting any treasures in this round, but you'll have a full complement of servants available for the next round. After the claim phase is complete, proceed to the collect phase, and this is where players will take the treasures that they've successfully bid on. Any treasures which weren't bid on are simply discarded from the game. Then, in any order they wish, players collect the treasures that they've successfully bid on and roll the dice that they bid. When they roll the dice, any die that comes up with a number that is lower than the number that was bid is placed in the exhausted servants box. Any that are equal or higher than what was bid are returned to the player. Regardless of what you roll on the dice, you will still retrieve that treasure. So, in retrieving this treasure, the player would roll both of these dice and see whether or not they are less than 4. This one is less than 4 and it would be exhausted. This one is equal or greater than 4 and would be returned to the player. Then the player takes the treasure and keeps it face down in his or her collection. All players do this for all of the treasures that they've gathered during the round. This mechanism is what disincentivizes players from bidding too high on the cards. If a player has received no treasures in this round because all of the dice that he or she placed were pushed out by opponents, then as a consolation prize the player gets to retrieve any exhausted servants from the exhausted servants box. Then proceed to the pass the torch phase, in which the leader torch and the lights out torch are passed one space around the circle. Play then proceeds to the next reveal phase. As players collect sets of matching treasures during the game, they will start to qualify for the bonuses on the various collectors. A player qualifies once he or she has the same number or more of treasures as his banners on that collector. Collectors are not first come first serve. They always remain available for all players to gain the benefit of as long as they meet the requirement, not just the player who meets the requirement first. There are two different types of benefits available in the game. Those that just show a banner are end of game victory point bonuses which apply to any player who has at least that many banners of that type. A banner showing an arrow is a flip bonus, and a player may flip over the number of cards matching that banner in order to take the effect shown. So for every yellow banner that a player has, if we're using this side of this collector, the player may re-roll one die when doing an exhaustion roll. Flipping over the card ensures that you can only use each treasure once for a flip action. An action like this one, which shows two flip icons, requires the player to flip over both of the matching treasures in order to take the effect, in this case recovering one die. At the end of the round in which the treasure deck is empty, the game is over and play proceeds to final scoring. Players flip over all of their collected treasures, whether they've used flip effects or not, and then count up their final scores. Players then add up all of the numbers in gold coins on these cards, and any points for end of game bonuses on collectors for which they qualify. So for example, the player has 3 pottery and would get plus 4 coins for this bonus, but does not have enough manuscripts to qualify for this bonus. Players also gain 1 coin for each leftover die which is not exhausted, and so there is a penalty to the player if he or she simply puts out a lot of high numbers in the final round, knowing that there's no need for servants in any subsequent rounds. The player with the highest score wins, and in the event of a tie, players roll their leftover unexhausted dice, and whoever rolls the higher number wins. The game also comes with a solo mode, and while we won't go through the full rules for that in this video, it does involve playing like a 2-player game, except you use a roll of an AI player's dice in order to steal some treasures away from you. There are some further variants, including a co-op mode and a 6 to 8 player mode available on the Road to Infamy website. And that is how to play Crypt.
And here are the game designers, Andrew and Jeff, who give you tips and strategy how to win the game. Hi guys!
Hi Stella and Tarrant, we're Jeff and Andrew of Road to Infamy Games, and we are the designers of Crypt.
We're here today to share some tips and strategies on how to best win the game.
So here we have a 3-player example just to show you a few tricks. So if on your turn you don't have many dice left, of course you can spend your turn recovering your dice from the box, but another option is to place a semi-lowish number out there, knowing that someone will likely push you out, but now they'll at least have to pay more than they would have if you didn't play anything at all. And when your dice are pushed out and you collect no treasure cards, you'll still get your dice back anyway. So on your turn, you can place either a single die, or you could play 2 dice of the same value. You might do this just to increase your odds that no dice are lost at all. However, this does restrict your ability to spread your dice out across multiple cards.
As the last player, I can only place my dice onto a single card. In this scenario, I could play on a spot that has no dice and place a 1. This would give me no risk of losing this die. I might also, though, play all 3 of my dice as 1s, which would allow me to kick out one of my opponents and secure a card for no risk.
A lot of strategy in Crypt comes from the collectors. The B side of the Remains collector offers the biggest reward of 10 coins, but in order to get that, you need 4 Remains cards, which can be challenging to achieve. So one trick you can do is try and pay a lot of your servant's effort to get the first 3 Remains cards that come out. By doing that, you make it a lot easier to grab that 4th when your opponents think it's not worth trying to block you, knowing that there's going to be 5 more Remains cards that come out.
Another fun combo is the Manuscript B and the Pottery B. Usually, you don't get to look at the face-down card in the Crypt, but the Manuscript B allows you to see it. Comboing these 2 cards together, you can then look at the face-down card and decide if you'd like to use your Pottery B ability to take it. In this case, we would leave this card right here and we wouldn't waste our Pottery ability.
Thanks Andrew and Jeff for the tips.
Well, we hope you all enjoyed this video, and we hope you enjoy playing. And if you'd like to see the game in action, you can check out our 1-round playthrough for the game by clicking on the link in the description.
If you have any comments, feedback, questions, or just want to say to us, we'd like to hear from you. Please write in the comment sections below.
And if you'd like to be among the first to know what's new from Meeple University, do please consider subscribing to our channel. You can click on the Meeple in the corner to do so. Helping us to monetize this channel will really help us to invest back into our time and equipment to bring better content for you.